Derik Queen could be a Maryland great when it's all said and done.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, video content creator for 247 Sports and InsideMarylandSports.com, and host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $50 or $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Derik Queen has a chance to be one of the Maryland greats. I want to talk about Derik Queen. This news just dropped. This commitment just happened, and I want to talk about it as much as I possibly can. While we have this high of landing Derik Queen, I want to get into it. I want to let you guys know what I think about Derik Queen, and I really do mean I think Derik Queen can be one of the Maryland greats when it's all set and done. And I'm going to give you guys multiple reasons of why. But to start, Derik Queen is the second best Maryland recruit ever, according to 247, which actually kind of surprised me. I know Maryland basketball has a lot of tradition that comes with it and national championship and all this type of stuff. So honestly, I don't know why, but I thought there would be a couple more people that we have gotten in the recruiting world that have been ahead of Derik Queen. But the more and more I thought about it, I'm like, this kid's ranked as the 12th best player in his class. This kid's a 5-star. He's elite. He's the elite of the elite. Like, you don't get these type of guys. These type of guys don't grow on trees. You're lucky if you can get one of these type of guys every 5 or 4 years, then you're lucky. Unless you're the Kentuckys of the world who just tend to get those type of guys, or the North Carolinas or the Dukes of the world who usually just tend to get those upper echelon top end guys and have top recruiting class after top recruiting class. If you're a program like Maryland, who, okay, we have solid basketball for sure for the most part. Maybe we're struggling this year, but overall we usually have solid basketball. We've had a tradition of having some really good teams, especially over the last 10 years. We're a March Madness team a lot of the time. But if you're a program like Maryland, you're lucky to get a guy like this every 4 to 5 years. And Derik Queen being the second highest ranked recruit ever according to 247, I honestly think is pretty accurate and goes to my point that I think Derik Queen can be one of the Maryland greats. You may ask who's number one. I'm sure some of you guys know, but it's probably not as expected as you might think. But Diamond Stone was actually the number one Maryland recruit ever. Stone was ranked 8th in his class, which I don't really remember him being like that highly rated. I remember him being like a high-end guy, McDonald's All-American, all that type of stuff, top 20 recruit. But I didn't remember him being like the 8th highest guy. Maybe you guys remember a little bit more than me. I was kind of young then. But Diamond Stone was the biggest Maryland recruit ever. But Derik Queen is number 2. But I want to go ahead and get this out the way. I think Derik Queen can accomplish more at Maryland than what Diamond Stone did. Diamond Stone was only at Maryland for 1 year as well, averaged about 12.5 points per game. I think Derik Queen could go down as a Maryland great and really live up to that second best recruit Maryland has had in a while. And I think the biggest reason why he can be a Maryland great, his game, it translates to the college level. He is the exact definition of a college basketball player. The way he plays, the way he does things, his IQ, all those different things that he has in his game. Derik Queen is a college type of athlete. He's the exact type of player you want in college. Some guys are more built for the NBA, and they have really high athleticism and really high ceiling, and it's going to take them a little bit to get there, but they're going to get drafted high in the draft process just because of the tools and what they potentially can be. There's been a ton of people like that. The NBA is often about potential, and some of the top players in college basketball won't be top players in the NBA. And I'm not saying that's Derik Queen, but overall, I really see a guy built for the college game. Number one, because of how he posts up. He can post up down low, which I love, which isn't a thing much in the NBA you'll see. But in college basketball, that's a big thing. If you have a guy that can get buckets down low and then the other teams have to game plan around that, it's hard to beat those type of teams. And we've had some of that with Julian Reese, but I think Julian Reese has definitely been good at it, but I don't think he's anything like amazing at the post-up game. I think he could be a little bit better than what he is overall, especially this year. Sometimes we've gone away from it. Sometimes he definitely gets the ball down low and does some really good things, 100%. But Derik Queen is very good in the post. There's this thing that goes around about Derik Queen, and like if you read some of the comments, everyone's like, it looks like he's not trying out there, and that's kind of what it does look like. If you go watch his highlights or whatever, he's like slippery and like he's got such great footwork, but nothing like jumps out of you like in terms of how his body moves where you're like, oh my gosh, like that guy is a freak of nature. That's not what Derik Queen is. He just knows how to play basketball, and he is super high IQ. He has awesome footwork down low in the post, and he has both hands. He has a left hand and he has a right hand. He's really good at pump faking shots down there. He knows how to get buckets down low. For a guy that's going to be playing center or power forward for us, that's what we're going to need. So number one, he's a really good post-up game down low that really will translate right away to college basketball. And then he can also has a jump shot. He's definitely developed that as part of his game. I don't know how much that will happen in college, but like he can shoot the mid-range. He's shown in his highlights and stuff that I've watched is he can shoot the three. I don't know how much he'll do that, but I think he definitely will shoot the mid-range with us, and that is hard to defend. When a guy can post up, he can shoot the mid-range, he can do all those different things, it's hard to defend that. And teams have to start the game plan. They have to start doubling. And that leads me to my next point about Derik Queen. He's a really great passer. So if he has to be doubled, if he has to do all those different things, he can pass the ball as well. It's like, how do you stop this guy exactly? I mean, that's what you kind of expect when you get a 5-star and all that type of stuff. You expect to get a guy that's going to be hard to stop in a lot of areas. And I think the thing about Derik Queen is he's polished. He's ready for college basketball. We could put him on our team right now, and he would start right now at that 4 spot, I think. He's ready for college basketball. His game is polished. Like I said, he has the mid-range game. He has the post-up. He has 2 hands. It's not like one of those guys coming in. I'm telling you, some of these top recruits come in, and you're like, okay, he's a freak of nature, and he could just physically dominate the high school level. But how good of a basketball player really is that guy? You can really see that, especially with some of the guys down low. There's a ton of players like that in basketball. And he's one of those guys that doesn't have that same athleticism that a lot of other people have, but he's polished. And I like a guy that's polished. And then also maybe his biggest strength is his rebounding. He does a great job rebounding the ball. So he really doesn't – he does pretty much everything well. Maybe he's not an elite shot blocker just because he's not a great vertical athlete, but he can definitely defend the rim a little bit. But he can rebound and go. Like, this is one of those guys that you have to, like, he has to inbound to a guard. He can rebound and just start going down the court. He's got a really good handle for his size. So overall, the way his game translates, his post game, his mid-range game that he's developed, his free throw line percentage has gone up a ton. All those reasons I think he can go down as a Maryland great, because at the end of the day, it's about your game. He can play basketball at a really high level, and I think it'll allow him to come in right away, potentially be our best player. Like, I'm looking at the roster, and depending on what happens, if Julian Reese goes and transfers somewhere else, which I think is definitely a possibility, and of course, Jameer Young and Dante Scott are gone, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, depending on what Maryland does in the portal, he could be our best player off there. He could be our focus guy. He could be the guy that does a whole lot down there. And then another reason I think he has the potential to be a Maryland great is because I don't know if he's a one and done. I don't know. I've touched on this a little bit. I don't know what he is in terms of the NBA. I don't know how much of that type of guy he is, not because he's not an awesome basketball player, just because the NBA is about potential. They're about tools. They like athleticism. And Derik Queen, he's not a freak of nature. He's not a freak athlete. That's not what he is, like I said. So it's a good thing for Maryland basketball. He could be around for 3, 4, 2 years. Maybe I could be completely wrong. He could be a one and done, and I could be wrong. But I think to become Maryland great and become one of the better players in Maryland history, you got to be there for a while. You got to be there for 3, 4, probably years overall. You can have a great single season, but if you want to go down as one of those guys that are like, yeah, he was a really good player overall, you got to be there for a little bit. And I think that's what Derik Queen kind of provides for us. He's going to be a guy that is going to – that I think could be in college for a little bit longer than people may think right now. I selfishly hope that we get him for a while, but I think he has all the tools in terms of his game, in terms of how he plays, in terms of his IQ to be a Maryland great. And I also think he could be in Maryland for longer than a lot of people think. He could potentially develop into a Big Ten Player of the Year type of player for the Terps. Maryland has to beat Rutgers this weekend. They have to. I will tell you about that after this ad from Ibotta. Grocery bills are so expensive these days, but now they don't have to be. I know a lot of you guys don't like grocery shopping right now because of how much money it can tend to be. But start getting cash back on your grocery shopping with the free Ibotta app and get cash back every time you shop. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys to anything you would want. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Don't let the expensive gods get to you. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, so you can buy the flight you've been eyeing, that game you're dying to go to, or the fancy dinner you've been craving, or just save your money overall. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 to just try out Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE where you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play Store or the App Store and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Maryland needs to beat Rutgers this weekend. I'm going to tell you why we need to win. It's a selfish reason why I want Maryland more than anything to win this game against Rutgers this game. Because Rutgers fans, I was on Twitter and I was getting tagged in some tweets by a Rutgers fan that happened to watch the show and a preview show of our last game against Rutgers, which didn't go well. And I talked bad about Rutgers, and I don't blame him for commenting and attacking me. I kind of like that stuff. I think it's fun, a little trash talking, whatever. But selfishly now, I need Maryland to win this game because I do not want to hear anything from these fans at all anymore. Because this is what they said. This is what the Rutgers fans said. At Tre Moore 13, listen to you and Locked on Terps talk about how bad Rutgers is. Guess what's worse? You, buddy. So I got attacked on Twitter from this Rutgers fan. So selfishly, I want Maryland to win this game more than anything. Kind of want to send out a tweet and be like, say something like, we got our get back or something. But at the end of the day, it's like, you're beating Maryland and we're beating Rutgers. Like, is it like that? Like, both teams are pretty much in the dumps this year. I don't see how much trash you can talk at 6-10, but I mean, I'll give them credit. I said Rutgers was a horrible team. I said they weren't very good. I kind of said that. And I want to stick with what I said, honestly. I'll stick with it. Rutgers isn't that good. This Maryland team should win. I look at this Rutgers team, I don't think they're that good. They're not that good of a team. I don't care what the Rutgers fans say. I don't care what anybody says. Look at the statistics. Look at the stats. Look at the records. You are as good as your record says you are in most cases. I mean, you could argue maybe this Maryland team is better than their record just because of the amount of close games we have lost this year. We know we have lost a ton of those. We've won one possession close. One possession. We have won one possession game. That's kind of a tongue twister. The one possession. We've won one. We have won one possession game. We have won one one possession game because there's like 3 ones in there. There's the WON and there's the 2 number 1. It's a weird little tongue twister there. But you guys get what I'm saying. We have one possession game. We have only done that once against Iowa on the road. Actually, we beat Iowa in a 1 possession game. But overall, we have been pretty bad in 1 possession games. So, I mean, I don't know what will happen against this Rutgers team. We lost to Rutgers by 1 possession, but I still think Maryland is better than the record just by the amount of 1 possession losses that we have. But you still are as good as your record says you are. At the end of the day, that's what you're judged on. You're judged on how many wins you have. That's how the March Madness staff looks at it. They look at how many quad ones you win. They look at who you lost to. All that type of stuff they look at. And if you go through this Rutgers team, they aren't that good. Go through the record. Go through the games they've won and lost, and it's not anything special. They're 11th in the Big Ten. We're currently 12th in the Big Ten. Okay, they're in front of us in the Big Ten, but it's like we're basically tied. We just have 1 more loss than them overall. But they're coming off some horrible losses. I think we got them where we want them. Their fans annoy me more than their team does. That's why I want us to win this game. It's like Stephen A. Smith and Cowboy fans. I don't get why they're talking. They're not a good team. And I know I talked bad about them, and I know we're not that good either. But this Rutgers team has been pretty bad. They've lost some games that it's like, I don't know. They just got crushed to Purdue. It's Purdue. They lost 96-68. Take that for what you will. Purdue's the best team in the Big Ten and maybe the best team in the country for my money if everything aligns and if they play the way they should. But they usually choke and do some bad stuff down the stretch. But Purdue's a really good basketball team, and they also lost to Minnesota, who I don't think is that good. But they did beat Northwestern. So they haven't been that good over their last 2 games. 2 double-digit losses, including getting crushed by Purdue. So I think we have them in a good spot. But KenPom also thinks Maryland's better. KenPom has Maryland as the 53rd ranked team compared to the Rutgers at 88. It's interesting that we're 53rd on KenPom. We're pretty high up there. I think we've just been a little bit unlucky at times. I mean, 53rd on KenPom, I don't think that's a bad spot to be. I mean, maybe you want to be a little bit higher. A big part of that's because of how we played defensively. We're like a top 10 team defensively on KenPom, or we were. But we are a better team than Rutgers overall, according to KenPom. And KenPom, I feel like KenPom doesn't lie. KenPom is a better indicator of where you are than probably like your actual record. Even though I said you're as good as your record says you are, which is true. You're also as good as KenPom says you are. KenPom does a really good job of kind of ranking the teams. But they are currently, like I said, ahead of us in the Big Ten. That's a part of why I want us to beat them so bad. I just want to send out a tweet to those Rutgers fans. I hope they're watching. I think this is fun. I like kind of the trash talk. I like kind of the back and forth. I like that spirit of sports. I like that part of it. I like fans talking to each other, saying whatever. I deserved it last time, and if we win, they'll deserve it. Like, I like that kind of flow. But it's interesting. I kind of thought at this point before the game that both teams are like just recruiting really there's really highly ranked recruits in both teams' 2024 classes. There's 3 5-stars combined between Rutgers and Maryland, which you don't expect. Of course, Rutgers' 2024 class has Ace Bailey, who's ranked number 2 overall, and Dylan Harper, who's ranked number 3 overall. So they have the number 2 and the number 3 ranked player in the 2024 class. And, of course, we just got Derik Queen. So it's kind of interesting that both teams are probably kind of like starting to look towards next year because we're not very good this year. Especially Rutgers. Rutgers basketball doesn't have like typical tradition of being anything special. So I think for them landing the 2nd and 3rd ranked player in the 2024 class, they are ready for next year. They want to see what they're going to be able to do. Maryland, I think, is kind of in between right now. We're excited about Derik Queen, but we also have a lot of concerns about next year and this roster drop-off. So what team can not look ahead to next year and win this game overall, I think it's interesting to see what could happen there, but who could win this game. But overall, I want Maryland to win. I think we need this win for our fan base. This isn't like the NFL or the NBA where it's like, lose games, we get a better draft pick. Like, that's not going to happen. There's no point of me saying, let's lose games. Like, we're not in professional sports. I think we could really use this win for a program. And with the momentum of Derik Queen, I think the program's in a better mood overall. I think we're in a good spot. So can we use some of that momentum and some of that excitement to play well against Rutgers? I think we will. I feel like the program's in a more spirited spot. If we didn't land him, I think things will be looking pretty bad overall. Let's get into the predictions for the game. What do I think will actually happen? I will tell you after this ad from FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. The NBA is back. Last night was the first day of basketball since the All-Star break. So make sure you continue to get on FanDuel because you could bet all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. If you want to bet on Steph Curry threes, LeBron James points, or whatever you want to do, just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. What are my predictions for the game? I'm going to go ahead and say it. Maryland wins. Maryland wins this game. I will not go for a Maryland loss back-to-back against this Rutgers team. We shouldn't have lost the first one at home. We had no business losing to that Rutgers team. We were better than them. It was at home with the home crowd. We should have won that game. I will stand by that. We should have beat that Rutgers team at home. I don't think this Rutgers team is that good. That's why I'm picking Maryland to win. I think Maryland's more talented. And I'm not saying we are supremely talented, but I think Maryland's a more talented part of has a more talented team. It's interesting because it's two teams that pride themselves on defense, but the way I look at it is both teams' identities, yes, is on defense, but I think Maryland's going to be harder to stop offensively. I think our defense can really play well against this Rutgers team. I think we can do some really good things against this Rutgers defense overall. I know it's pretty good. I know it's pretty high ranked on KenPom. I know they have some solid defensive players overall, but I think Maryland is harder to stop on offense than Rutgers is to stop on offense. So I think the Maryland team can do some really good things against this Rutgers team. I think we can stop them. I think we can stop them offensively with our defense, and I think they'll have a harder try slowing down our offense than they may think. I also think Maryland has the best couple of players on the court. I think we have the two best players on the court, in Jahmir Young and Julian Reese. I don't see a guy on Rutgers' roster that's better than those two guys. Rutgers fans will probably say it wrong in that they have a couple guys that are better than them. But at the end of the day, Jahmir Young is by far the best player in the court. You can't tell me Jahmir Young's not the best player in the court. Jahmir Young has a chance to be all Big Ten. He's really playing like an All-American. Rutgers doesn't have that type of guy. He can legitimately go for 30 against Rutgers and win the game on his own. I think he's good enough to do that, and I think he might take over in this type of game because I think that he's going to be able to do some things against Rutgers. I know their defense is good and whatever, but I'm not sold on Rutgers' defense. I know it's statistically good, but I think Jahmir Young is going to be able to penetrate and be able to come back from a shaky last game against Wisconsin where he shot 6 of 17, which was definitely not to his standard. He's played better than that in a lot of different cases. So I think we have the two best players on the court, and I think Julian Reese can also play pretty well down low. I think he can do some things against this Rutgers team. But I remember the first matchup against Rutgers, Julian Reese did have a very good game with, let me pull it up, 19 points, 12 rebounds with 34 minutes. Jahmir Young actually had 12 rebounds as well, which is kind of interesting against Rutgers in the first matchup. But he had 16 points. But there was no other help, literally no other help. Dante Scott had 8, and basically everybody else on the team had 2 points. Geronimo had 2, Deshaun had 2, Kaiser had 2, Jahari Long had 2, Callan Swat and Rogers had 2. I think we get more points than we did last time. I didn't even think Rutgers did anything special. They scored 56 points. We just couldn't score enough. And you got to be able to score more than 56 points in college basketball to win games. And I think we'll do that this game, even though we're away, and that will definitely play to Rutgers' advantage. I think playing on the road definitely hurts us, but I still think Maryland pulls this one away. I don't think Rutgers' crowd or anything is going to be so rowdy that it's like we're playing at one of those places. We're not going to be playing at Cameron Indoor Stadium. It's not going to be like one of those type of situations. It's going to be like Rutgers basketball. Like, they're not very good. Like, the crowd's not going to be anything crazy. I think Maryland can really pull this game. And then Derik Queen momentum, like I talked about in the last segment, I think that's a thing. I think I feel some of that. I think some of the players will feel some of that, whether it's Deshaun and Jamie Kaiser, knowing that they have a really good player coming in next year. And I know Kevin Willard is feeling pretty relieved that Derik Queen committed. I know he's feeling pretty good about that. So I think that's also in a good spot. I think that's almost like getting a win. Like, that might be bigger than a win for the Maryland program. At this point in the season, if you would have told me lose out or land Derik Queen, or go 500 and land Derik Queen, I would have chose to lose out and to get Derik Queen. I think it's a real thing. I think it brings energy to the program. I think guys are going to like that. And then my last point was Rutgers shoots poorly from the free throw line. Maryland's really bad at closing out games, but Rutgers could struggle to close out a close game. And I think Maryland could take advantage of that to their poor free throw shooting overall. So I think Maryland wins. I think it's a defensive battle. I think it's a close game. But I think Maryland comes away with this. I'll say 63-59. 63-59. Maryland wins the game. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.